Are you ready to take your privacy knowledge to the next level? Enroll in the Certified Information Privacy Professional United States course today. That's the CIPPUS. Learn everything you need to know about U.S. privacy laws and regulations, from private sector data collection limits to government access and workplace privacy. Stay ahead of the curve with emerging topics like artificial intelligence, data portability, and state privacy laws. This course is perfect for privacy professionals, newcomers to the field of cybersecurity, mid-career professionals trying to pivot into cybersecurity, legal experts, and anyone passionate about data protection. Don't wait. Click on the link in the show notes to sign up now and boost your privacy expertise. You can use the promo code TBP sale for 20% off before January 31, 2025. That's promo code TBP sale, like the Big Picture Podcast sale, for 20% off before January 31, 2025. Thank you. So thanks for joining us again on another episode of the Big Picture Podcast. Today I have a friend, I would say neighbor, and then resident AI expert. Over to you.
Oh, no, I'm not sure if the 100% an expert, but yeah, nice to be here. I'm Greg Ross-Munro. I'm the CEO and co-founder of SourceToad, and I live right next to Bid. We see each other on the way to school every day.
Yep. Talking about seeing each other on the way to school, we have quite a few things in common. We're both parents. We live in the same neighborhood. Our kids go to the same schools, and so on and so on. To rewind all the way back, where are you from? What do you do? You mentioned you're the CEO of SourceToad. What is SourceToad? What does SourceToad do? How did SourceToad originate? And so on and so on.
Okay, so it's three questions there. But I'm originally from South Africa. I moved to the States to go to college when I was 20. I'd done 1 year of university in South Africa. So moved here, continued to do near-phys as my degree, but had always been into technology. My grandfather, that's a photo of him,
nice,
teaching software engineering at IBM in the 50s. And he taught me to code when I was probably 8 years old.
Wow.
And so I'd always had software engineering job. I never had a real job. I never had a paper route. The first job that I had was being a Perl programmer for an ISP when I was 15.
Wow.
Which is 1994 or something. So yeah, so did that, moved to the States. Started a business here that was a geographic mapping company, and it didn't do super well. It was very stressful, and I was lucky enough to be able to sell it. When I was very young, I didn't know anything about running a business, and moved away for a little bit, and then came back and decided I needed to learn about business. So I did an MBA, ended up working at an investment bank because I thought that's how you learn about business. And then I just did not like working at the investment bank. I freaking hated it, actually. One day I went to the partners and I said, hey, guys, I don't want to work here. I've got some other opportunities. And they said, hey, stay here. Continue to help build tech for us, because I'd kind of weaseled my way out of being an analyst into an engineer again. And they said, hey, look, you should start a business and do this as a consulting practice. And I was like, well, I have no business plan or anything. And they said, we'll fund you. Just stay working here and you can run your own business. And I was like, these guys are crazy. But yeah, okay, I'll do that.
Nice.
And so SourceToad was founded as basically started as my consultancy 16 years ago.
Wow.
in 2008. And since then, it has grown into about a 60-something person contract engineering and software development company that does digital transformation, AI development, custom software engineering, AWS server management, the whole nine yards. So that's what. Did that hit all your questions?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
There you go.
for those who actually didn't know, of course, I knew the answer to some of these questions. And to build a picture of your motivations and background and so on, I see a few threads that I'm about to start pulling here. You're originally from South Africa. You have a family background that basically exposed you to this area of software development, software engineering. And then you tried a few things. You tried your hands in investment banking, you didn't like it. And then from there, because these people saw your work ethic, they were able to say, we believe in you enough to pay you to basically not work for us, build your own thing, and then leave. So that is like I said, the threads that I was about to start pulling is that work ethic. As an immigrant myself, it's something I can definitely identify with. How would you describe your passion? You started developing software at the age of 8. How would you describe that passion? And now you basically lead programmers. You run a company where you lead programmers to build software for other companies. So now you're one leg in, one leg out in this
Yeah.
software development world. Of course, you have the technical background, but you're more into just herding cats and coders, which is the title of a book you wrote. So,
Thanks for the plug.
so
I
how
don't
would you
care if anyone.
describe?
You don't even have to read the book; just buy it. That's all that's important.
Right, right. So the title is actually a very interesting title. Just to pull on that thread, what does that basically entail? The book is basically about working with programmers, and you don't even have to know the first thing about programming. So tell us more about that. Herding cats and coders.
Yes. So I have a wide variety of clients over the years. We've probably put out, I think, somewhere over 400 or 500 pieces of product launches that we've done in the last 16 years. And so we've had all levels of sophistication in terms of clients and where they are in the product development, software development lifecycle, and then knowledge around product and how it works and how you should talk to developers and all those kind of questions. And so at some point, I started trying to find a book for non-technical startup founders or non-technical project managers who were doing spin-offs or were put in charge of productizing some part of a professional service, because most of our clients are kind of mid-sized businesses and they're not technical by nature. So they're pool supply companies, or they're medical warehouse companies, or they're cruise lines or something like that, right? So their main product is not software. It's not, they haven't productized the digital aspect of that. They have marketing departments, etc., but not like a department of software engineers. And so I wanted to be able to give. I ran into so many problems every time I said, what's a data? Like, let's talk about a database. And sometimes people would say, how do I know which database to pick? And I said, no, just trust me. And then, but I kind of instead of talking to them about the whole range of databases that are available, I just wanted to give them a book and say, here's all the basics that you need to know, just so that you can start talking to a developer, so you know what all the terms are, you know what agile is, you know how programming kind of works, you know what deployments are, you know how you can make what an API is, just kind of some of the basics. And I looked around for a book like this for a long time, could not find it, and I eventually just decided I would write it. And it's become fairly popular. It's a little out of date. It could do with the revision. I don't think there's nothing about AI in the book. So,
Right.
But yeah, I wrote it because I needed it to hand to clients.
Right, right. And from my experience, the best kinds of product services is the ones that actually address a specific question, usually a personal problem. So this book solved a problem you had personally. And then you basically
Yep.
decided to solve the problem for yourself. And then you're like, oh, I might as well just share this with everyone who might be interested in this line of work or a tangential line of work and so on. So you mentioned how there is nothing about AI in the book. And since publishing up until now, November 2022, ChatGPT came around. From your experience as a CEO, you've been a CEO for as long as some people have been alive. How would
Thanks.
you say AI has basically revolutionized your line of work, software development, managing software developers, and so on?
Wow, it's been a crazy, I don't know what, 20 months or something.
Yeah.
It's that's how new the stuff is. But uh, wow, it's changed everything. I don't want to say that say that lightly. But almost every aspect of our business is now in some ways involved with AI. To the point where AI itself is or at least the large language models and the generative AI. And that's when I say that, I mean things like ChatGPT and Midjourney and DALL-E and Perplexity and all these kind of tools, right? They have become daily tools for us personally for productivity, writing code quicker, in some cases, uh, being the back-end systems for certain types of logic that were unavailable to us as tasks. So, for example, if computers are very good at computational stuff.
Right.
So you can say, hey, take this thing out of a database and multiply it by this thing and grab this data source from some other thing and put it all together, and you may have a financial valuation of a potential company. It's all being done computationally. But it was very, and that's pretty standard. But being able to take something that is kind of fuzzy, so you take a document from a company and you look at all the text and you say, what kind of work does this company do and how would you categorize it? That was like, if somebody had asked me that two years ago, I would say, okay, well, I need like $10 million and a bunch of PhDs to be able to solve that problem. And now I can do it in seconds. The same way I access a database is the same way I use AI tools. And so those tools have become almost like background technology now. A year ago, it seemed like magic. Today, it's everything uses it then in almost everything we do. Not by choice, but because most of our new clients, the same way that kind of when the iPhone started allowing people to build apps on top of it, we had kind of an explosion of new clients who wanted mobile apps. And this is similar. In fact, it's larger, where we have clients who say, we want to use these AI tools to be able to do things that we couldn't do before, especially things like gathering huge amounts of data, processing in new and interesting ways, or interacting with humans in novel ways through conversation, natural language. So that's the way it's kind of changed our business and how we work with clients. But that hasn't really changed. It's more like the new toy that everybody wants. And then I wouldn't say that everybody who works with us has a strong immediate feeling of what the ROI is going to be. I think that some do. I would say 50% do, and that's basically the new basis of their business. The other 50%, I think, are smart enough to know that if they're not using AI in some application now, that they're not going to have built that muscle about how to work with it and knowing what it's good at and what it's bad at. And so they're spending that money to invest in implementing and integrating these new tools into their existing systems so that their competitors don't get some sort of advantage on them by doing it earlier and quicker. So maybe there's not an immediate ROI on this technology for them because they haven't worked it out how to do it, but they know that if they They're not. It's moving so fast that if they don't do it now, then they're going to get leapfrogged. So that's how kind of the clients are using it. From a practical standpoint, our developers use AI every single day. There's all these new kind of co-pilots that sit inside of your IDE, which is called your integrated development environment, which is where generally a modern software developer is writing code in. Somebody's going to say that you should only use Emacs or Vim or whatever because you're cool. And I agree completely. But for most mere mortals, we use IDE. And these IDEs are getting really, really, really good with the integration of these co-pilots. So that you can actually start prompting, and it'll generate code for you, especially like simple blocks of code that you can reuse. And so there's this. So it has sped us up in some ways. There are two ways that we use it. The first way is, and this is probably this is going to date very quickly, this conversation, because it's probably going to change. But right now, the best way that we found to use it is we act more like architects, software architects, than we do programmers than we were 2 years ago. So, and what I mean by that is, a software architect would say, I need like this component built and this component built and this component built. And then you're going to arrange them in this way, and they're going to talk to each other. So this function takes your information and puts it in a database. And this function over here, or routine, whatever it's going to be, it adds all your purchases to your account, that kind of stuff, right? And you would have to program both of those. And then you'd string them together with code. What we do now is the AI writes the first draft of each one of those functions. And then we kind of move those Lego blocks around because we understand how software should be architected. And we do the testing and the security and that kind of stuff. The other way that it can be used is you can ask there's tools out there that you can say, just build me everything. Vercel has a tool called V0, which is like crazy cool. It can build your entire front ends. And we use that for prototyping now. We move so much faster. There's all sorts of tools out there that can actually write all the code for a system. It'll do its best, and they're not terrible. They're not bad. They make us nervous.
Nice.
For what the future looks like. But the problem with them, from what we see, is that this kind of diminishing returns at about it can do about 70% of the job, and then the returns are increasingly diminished because it's harder and harder for the human beings who understand how to build the stuff for them to debug it when it goes wrong. It's harder and harder for the AI to debug complex systems that it built like 2 weeks ago. Those are problems that are probably going to get solved, and who knows what the world's going to look like then, and what how we're going to build products.
Right.
And I've got thoughts about that, but yeah, those are generally the day-to-day ways that our developers and engineers use it, and the clients. And then from a marketing perspective, a managerial perspective, I mean, I spend all day with Claude and ChatGPT and Perplexity every single day. Those are my 3 closest working allies now. I was in a marketing meeting today when we got a new list of cruise line executives was released in a purchase from a research group. I was like, wasn't very expensive. We said, okay, we'll buy it. And it comes in a PDF. That's the only way you can buy it. It's not a super sophisticated markup. So we buy this thing and we think, well, we need to get this into an Excel spreadsheet and get their emails out and work out what we should do with them. Like, okay, who could do this? Let's talk to, maybe we give it to an intern or something and they can work through this for a week. And I was like, no. We just fed the thing into Claude and we're like, wow. I want you to pull out every single person who's got a technology title in there. And it did it in like 30 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah.
So as you were describing this thought processes, what came to mind to ask you is to do a thought exercise. Let's do a case study. Let's assume I approach you to advise me. I'm thinking of starting a company, a small business. Let's say I want to start selling coffee in downtown Tampa, Florida. I have my business plan. Let's assume a bank, a microfinance bank, has agreed to loan me some money. Now I'm approaching you, Mr. Ross-Munro, to basically help me out on the technical end. I want to be able to capture the market. I have all the business plan. Like I said, the bank has handed me the check. All I have to do is really execute on what I told the bank I'm going to execute on. So now I have my supplier of coffee beans from, let's say, Sarasota, Florida, 2 hours away. I have my market, young business executive types in downtown. I have basically a set of business customers as well, B2B, B2C, that sort of basically a fancy coffee shop, but I'm the owner. I just two-man business, me and my wife and so on. Now I'm thinking of
Cool.
having my database plugged in into some form of artificial intelligence, fancy smarty, to be able to say that these are my customers. This is when they buy coffee and pastry the most. This is when I need to pay attention to my supply. I can go 2 weeks without calling my supplier because this AI system is going to figure out when do I need to basically restock the back of the store. How would you advise me to go about this, setting up all of this, marketing this database that so that everything can basically work well and I can give the bank feedback when they call me up saying, how are you spending our money? And so on.
Well, your question is remarkably complicated, but like couched, and it should say it's everyone would like the answer to be okay. Well, I would take all my at the end of the day, I would take all my inventory data from whatever inventory system I have, and I would take all my sales data that I have, and I would pump them into an AI assistant, and I would have a prompt that would say something along the lines of, based on the information you see today and my stock levels, when do you think I should, restock? The problem is in the real world is that inventory levels and demand, especially for foot traffic, places like that, would be quite unpredictable. And I would be very concerned about the AI hallucinating answers to what you're trying to do. So I'm just giving you the risks first because
Right.
I'm, you're starting your business. I don't want you to lose everything on this crazy idea. So, in a perfect world, what you would do is you would have your two databases, inventory and sales, and that would give you consistent historical data. Now, both of those systems are traditional, like, development data systems, right? They're not cool, crazy, fancy large language model things. There are really good machine learning systems out there that will help you do predictions and like consumer purchasing systems. There's a thing called Restaurant Magic out there that's got AI built into it, which does things exactly like this. But if you wanted to build it on the cheap and you had your inventory thing built in, what's the worst database I can think of? Microsoft Access. Sorry, if anybody's a Microsoft Access person, I deeply apologize that you have to use that Fisher Price database system. But whatever, it's cool. You've got that, and you've got all your sales in Excel. You could theoretically create every single night you'd probably want to be able to get the AI system to be able to see that amount of data. You would have some sort of aggregation of that and feed it into your agent, your assistant, that you could build probably very quickly using something like OpenAI's assistant. And you could just talk to it and you could say, based on historical levels, what do you think and how much coffee is being drank, and can you see trends? And it probably will work. There are in the last couple of weeks / months, Claude is, which is an Anthropic product, is extremely good at some of this stuff. And what Claude will do is it will write code in its canvas on the fly to try and analyze your data. You might even not understand the code that it's writing, but you could ask Claude a question and you'll see it starting to write like Python script that will execute in the browser and actually give you the answers. So you can hand it a bunch of data, you can ask it the question, and it will write the code to do the analysis for you. Because the large language model itself, the model, the like underlying set of things that it's learned, can't do that. It'll try, but it's more like a puppy that's really trying to please you, and so it'll just come back with like whatever answer it thinks is going to make you the happiest. But things like Claude will like write code to do the analysis for you, and then you can have a conversation with it, and it'll change the code, and that would actually probably give you a reasonable result. It's pretty cool. And OpenAI has introduced a canvas now in the last, I don't know, week, 2 weeks. But I think Claude's is better, at least, what is that, January 9th. That might not be true tomorrow, though. So
yeah.
that is doable, and you would use those two kind of systems.
To your description of Claude, ever since, was it Amazon announced that crazy investment into Anthropic, and then the whole thing just started going crazy, and OpenAI is trying to catch up, and OpenAI has its own good strengths and weaknesses. Claude has its own, and then the image models. I think Facebook, was it that came out with one that can basically generate videos now?
Yeah, and OpenAI is Sora, which is also pretty crazy.
Yeah. So talking about your company, you have, or you recently, was it recently you came out with this product called On Deck? Let's talk a little bit about Source Code On Deck. What does it do? What is it? You mentioned a while ago saying you have this relationship with cruise lines and so on and so on. So if you can just flesh that out for us.
Yeah. So in 2010, we were approached by a luxury cruise line called Silver Sea, because we had built the Holiday Inn captive portal. You know, when you go to like Holiday Inn, you type in your last name and room number and you get on the internet?
Right.
Like, we built that.
Nice.
And then Silver Sea were like, oh, we want that for our cruise ship. So we're like, okay, cool, we'll just do that. And we didn't have any cruise lines. And that led from, we built that stuff for Silver Sea. We built an app for them, the first app in the cruise industry, because building apps in 2010 was, it doesn't sound that long ago, but it's just a long time ago, man. Like, you couldn't do that kind of stuff. And then Viking Cruise Lines was launching their ocean fleets. Crystal hired us, and then Viking really was the one that kind of blew us up. We built everything for them, from their mobile apps to their digital TV systems, their digital signage systems, and kind of was one of those big kind of moments in the company that helped us take off.
Nice.
And since then, we kind of like picked up one, we started developing a little bit of a speciality in cruise. And we were very, very fortunate. We had built a platform for Viking to be able to handle all of this stuff. And they approached us, actually, and they said, could you maybe spread out some of the cost of this enormous platform that we've built with other cruise lines? And it was a strange question, because I thought, well, isn't this a competitive advantage for you? And they were really kind of ahead of their time in thinking, because their leadership said, well, no, I mean, it is in some ways, but the things that make us our brand are the way we deliver our product and the way it looks and how we understand our passengers. But the fact that we have an app and the fact that the TV system works, everybody has that, and everyone's going to go and get it in some way. We may as well spread that out as an industry. And so they turned around and gave us back all the IP that we had built for them. So once again, very lucky, a lot of work and time and effort and partnerships and relationship building, but it was, we had done a lot of work for them, and they gave it all back to us.
Wow.
And so we began productizing that just before COVID hit, which was not a good time for the cruise industry, as you can imagine.
Right.
But COVID really helped in some ways with our ability to spread out as become a more virtual organization. We still have a large office that nobody comes into, and it helped with a lot of clients who immediately had to move to kind of more digital solutions to provide things over the internet rather than in person. And so that kind of kept us alive as when the cruise and ferry stuff that we were doing just kind of completely shut down. And then when we started coming out of COVID, we decided to productize new lines of business in this. So like have an app in a box that a cruise line can purchase and make it a SaaS product, as opposed to the kind of custom engineering we do for more educational companies, healthcare companies, and finance companies, which are kind of our bread and butter. And then on the cruise and ferry side, we started to productize what we had already built and for Viking plus new stuff. And that included new TV systems, new digital signage systems, new captor portals, chat systems, and now AI passenger systems, which are really kind of cool.
Nice, nice. Something I read recently was how, of course, during the pandemic, a lot of hospitality and retail organizations had to basically change their operating model. And now, even post-pandemic, many hospitality, cruise lines, hotels, and so on, they're not necessarily bringing people back into customer service roles simply because they've seen how AI systems can handle that. You don't necessarily have to interact with a human being when checking into a hotel. Hotels now have apps where the moment you pay for the hotel, they tell you to download the app. You can check into your room from when you land in the airport and get into your rental car. So you just walk into the hotel as if you've been staying there and you're just going back to your room. So a lot of that basically operating model changes is affecting how business is being done. How much of that do you foresee? Do you think it's going to bring back or go in a cyclical manner, saying people still want to interact with humans, or is there going to be an evolution of that where the AI system is just going to change and now we have holograms or something funny like that?
Wow. There are, I mean, I'm not worried about the holograms. And I'm not super worried about large language models taking everyone's jobs yet. But if you combine that with robotics, we should all be a little concerned, I
Yeah.
think, because robots are coming along very quickly, in part aided by AI. And when I say AI, I don't mean like crazy science fiction AI. I mean like these kind of cheesy things that we can do with them now that they're good at, but they're getting better. There are going to be, especially when it comes to cost sensitive areas, they're going to just be replaced with AI and robots. That is, if most companies can pay, let's say you could buy a robot to do your job for $50,000 and we have to pay you $80,000 a year, whatever. I'm buying the robot, man. If it doesn't really matter what the output is, if it's flipping burgers, or if it is carrying bags, or if it is writing code, or if it's writing marketing copy, it doesn't matter what it is. Most corporations are going to take the cheaper way to do it to get the highest return for their shareholders, because that is, unless you're a B corporation or a nonprofit, that is like the ultimate goal of what you're supposed to do, which feels weird that that's actually what we're all trying to do here in capitalism, but that is the case.
Yeah.
There is going to be a significant number of businesses, a lot of my clients included, that consider themselves to be in the luxury space, or the ultra luxury space, or like the mid luxury space, which is like this whole, if you talk to marketing people, these are entire huge categories, where dealing with human beings is going to be the expectation. We are a long way away from going to a Michelin star restaurant and a robot comes up to serve you and overhears on the way to your table, as they're showing you to the table, that you really that you're here on your anniversary and you had gone, and this restaurant used to be a Mexican restaurant before, and remember our first date, we had those great tacos or whatever it was, and then the chef in the back gets delivered that message by the waiter. They didn't say anything. That's an ultra luxury experience, right? Where they listen, they say, well, enjoy your meal, they give you the menu, but then the chef has actually prepared something completely unique and like a Mexican fusion dish based on the restaurant and delivered it to a table. And the kind of joy that sparks in human beings is insane. And if you've ever experienced that kind of stuff, when people have done like service that well, it kind of like blows your mind when it's done that well.
Yep.
And we are a long, long way away from like the kind of subtlety that human beings can pull off compared to the most sophisticated robots that I can even imagine at this point. That said, that is a smaller segment of the market than not everyone's a Michelin star restaurant, right? And not everyone is an ultra luxury cruise line. There is still probably, if you go to a Silver Sea or a Four Seasons or something like that, people probably don't want a robot butler.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of people who don't want to they don't want to put their order in at a restaurant where they're sitting down into a digital menu. They have to, we tried that like 6-7 years ago, or like everyone tried it. And the reason is that when you sit down at a restaurant, and I don't know why I keep going back to restaurants, but when you sit down at a restaurant and you sit down, you're going to pay, $50 to $100 a head for that experience. One of the things people want, even if they don't know what they want, they know they want this, is they want to hear a story about why the restaurant exists. Because like the experience and the eating of the food is all combined in this like this thing that makes you feel something. And then you're going to look at the menu and say, well, what's better between these two things? And if it's a large language model saying, well, I prefer the lobster over over the tilapia, it's like, that's just a machine learning thing saying that tilapia is less expensive than lobster, so sell the person lobster. Whereas the waiter might be like, look, I know the lobster is really good, but that tilapia is out of this world at this restaurant. So I don't know what human beings are going to do in the future, but I think it's going to be things like that are more about dealing with other human beings.
Right. And to your point,
crazy person, don't I?
Oh, no. To your point, it brought me back to an experience I had in Vegas. There's this annual cybersecurity conference every August in Vegas, and I attended. That was back in 2019. And then there was this bar. They were trying out this robot to basically serve drinks. And I walked in and I was like, this is cool and everything, but it still lacks that human feel you get from a bartender, whether it's an experienced bartender or a bartender who is like on day 2 of the job. There is still that human connection. The bartender would recommend a drink that you've never tried before, and then based on their personal experience making that drink, or maybe that's their favorite drink, then you try it and then you're like, you would never ever maybe thought about trying this drink, but then this bartender shared the story behind the drink, not even the drink itself. Everybody likes a particular type of drink, but then when you hear someone's story behind why they like a particular drink, and then you're like, oh, now I'm thinking differently about this drink. And it's just a $10 drink in a random bar in Las Vegas. So to that point, it's basically that human touch. It's always going to be there, no matter how many AI systems, even if it's like a robot that talks like a human, feels like a human. No, it's just not going to be the same.
I mean, not to bury the lead here, but most jobs in the world, most of the things that drive our economy are not high-end or human interaction service industry jobs, right? That is a large portion of the economy, but it's not, finance and banking and, automotive repair and sales. And these are, product services and goods. These are where large portions of the economy are based.
Right.
And the way that our system is set up is to, from a competitive standpoint, is to try and make the most amount of money and to try and drive your costs down, or the most amount of profit is really what we're talking about here. And those corporations, those organizations, mine included, we say we care about people, and we do, but ultimately at the end of the day, most organizations care about return on shareholder value.
Right.
And as a result, that means that in any way that they can increase profit, which could, in many cases, whether it is the person who's selling you a car, like what Carvana is trying to do with, and to some degree has done successfully, or replacing the order takers at McDonald's with kiosks, or having a bot chain replace the person who like handles your airline booking tickets, or a million other things, all the way up to your financial broker making trades for you in ways that you don't understand. Those jobs and the way the entire economy works is seriously at risk. Like I'm not trying to be like a doomsayer, but we are dangerously close to a radical shift in our economy and the way that we work that we have not seen in probably a generation. And there's been this kind of promise that we have made to, especially in America, which is that if we work hard and we study and we are good people, that we will eventually be rewarded in some way. Economically, we'll at least be stable, right? Like we'll be able to feed our children, we'll be able to home and house ourselves. And I think that there is, not just within our lifetime, but within the next 10 years, where while that promise has probably not been fulfilled for a lot of people, it's going to get way hotter, way, way hotter. And we are going to lose way more people to that promised dream. And that sounds really depressing. I apologize for saying it, but this technology is terrifying. And the argument that people are making right now is not, should I use my time and resources to try and make the world a better place? It's, I need to make as much money as quickly as possible so that when these bad things happen, they won't affect me. And that is what a lot of people's attitudes I see have kind of become.
Yeah, and that's actually a very sad, possible outcome. And every day, every week, that outcome seems even much more possible than the past 6 months, past 1 year. And some people would say, well, it's just going to be like when the internet was introduced in the 80s and it took away some jobs, but it created way more jobs and so on and so on. But how certain are we that the change that the internet brought is definitely not comparable to the change that AI is going to bring? And even internet companies are being affected. AI is built on the internet. Now it's basically suffocating the companies that serve as the backbone of the internet. A case study is Yahoo. Now, Yahoo is basically a shell of its former self, or however we want to describe it. Another one is every company that Amazon is competing with now. I was reading recently how pharmacy companies, basically the Walgreens and CVS's, are now under competition from Amazon, simply because Amazon is using AI to figure out what people buy on Amazon to identify the kind of things they are likely to buy drugs for.
Yeah.
Think about how crazy that is. Not the drugs they buy on Amazon, just the things they buy on Amazon. Then you can tell, oh, this person is likely to have an allergy to oranges. So now let's sell this person allergy medication when allergy season rolls around in February, March, because we have data on what they bought in July, August, September, October.
The thing that I remember that kind of changed a lot of the way I think was, and this is a long time ago. I want to say 2000 and this is pre like generative AI, large language model stuff. I want to say it was 10 years ago, if not more, like 2012. There was Target had a data mining system for all their customers, and they had a usage records of who the people of their customers were, and they would look at everything that you were buying, and you would say, well, how does Target know what I'm buying specifically? Because Target doesn't know who I am. Well, Target buys your data from your credit card company, and they have a data system, and everybody does this.
Yep.
So if you don't know this, I'm sorry. I've actually helped build systems that do this. Right? They buy the credit card data. They look at they match it up with the purchases that they have on record, and they can identify you. And as a result, once they know that the last four, even if it's obfuscated from the data, they know who you are every time. If you shop there a couple times, they know who you are. They know where you live. They buy enrichment data to like work out where your other shopping preferences are. Also, the stuff they have on you. We're talking about 2010, 2012, whatever it was. Even then was enormous from a data warehousing standpoint. And machine learning at that point, which is kind of generative AI's younger, dumber brother, or predecessor, great ancestor, was still pretty good back then. And this is just kind of algorithms that are goal-seeking algorithms. Microsoft Excel has basic goal-seeking functions built into it. If you don't know them, you should check them out. They're cool. But Target predicted, they sent a household a number of things like coupons and advertisements for diapers, baby formula, etc. And the only woman of childbearing age in that household was a 15-year-old girl. And the father of said young lady became enraged by this because they were targeting her. And it turned out that she was pregnant. And Target had started sending her stuff about having a baby before her father knew that she was pregnant. I mean, a lot of reasons why a 15-year-old girl wouldn't let her dad know that she's pregnant, but that is the degree that that data mining, machine learning was able to do in 2012. If you want to try and extrapolate what that's like 12 years later, the stuff we can do is insane.
Yep.
Insane.
Wow.
And so much cheaper. It's not just Target that can do it. It's your local coffee shop that you're about to start up in South End.
Yep. And it's when these conversations come up, and I'm having the conversation whether with friends or coworkers and so on, and then I start to lay out how all your data is connected to all your other data. And then they're like, what do I mean by that? Okay. You go on vacation, a city you've never been before, you show up to buy something. As long as it's the same card that you've been using in your home city.
100%. Yeah.
Immediately they were like, oh, okay, it's the same person. How do you know it's the same person? Even if the cameras are not working, that machine you're swiping that card on is connected to every other machine, not even in the country. Basically, if it's MasterCard, then everywhere MasterCard is, now your data is just...
This is one of my favorite kind of conspiracy theories comes out of this, which is, I'm sure you've heard this before, which is people say, oh, Apple or Facebook or Google, they're listening to me on my phone.
Right.
Because I was talking to my friend about kitty litter, and I don't even have a cat. He's the one with the cat, and then I went on to check my email, and I saw an ad for kitty litter, and they're like, they have to be listening to me on my device. Like, no, they are not listening to you on your device. That would be such a waste of resources. It's such an easy way to do it. Your friend has a cat. Your friend has a Facebook profile. You both, or Instagram, or a million other Meta properties,
right,
or Google properties. You opened your phones in the same vicinity of each other, maybe connected to the same Wi-Fi network.
Right.
They know that you know each other. They look at your social graph. Your friend was talking about kitty litter, so he probably went and searched for kitty litter. And as a result, they're going to take a swing in the dark and say, maybe you want kitty litter as well. I don't know why I'm picking kitty litter. I don't have a cat. I'm horribly allergic to cats. But then the kitty litter ad pops up on your feed, and you're like, oh, they're listening to it. No, they're not. They're just connecting dots.
Right.
That's all. And dot connecting is actually just as efficient, if not more efficient, than actually listening to human conversations and parsing them. Wow. Because it's way cheaper computationally.
Wow, wow, wow. To kind of pivot from this darkly
Sorry,
conspiratorial.
it's almost 10 p.m. Sid.
Right,
I'm
right.
having a
So,
whiskey, enjoying myself.
yep. So, your company does a lot for the community. I know this. Some people probably don't know this. So, you actually mentor startups. You contribute to the Tampa Bay tech community, and some people don't even know where Tampa is on the map, but I guess they're about to find out. How did this come about? What led you to give back to your community, and so on and so on?
What led me to give back to the community? It's probably just something my parents did to me. I don't know.
Right.
16 years ago when I started Source Toad, and even before that when I had my first technology company in the early 2000s, Tampa was not a tech hub.
Hmm.
There were people doing startups, there were people with technology companies, but mainly what Tampa was known for was being a really good back office
Hmm.
company. Everybody from Accenture to PwC to Capital One, they had their call centers here, they had their back office centers here. That's what we did. And in those places, in those cubicles, you had really good technologists keeping the lights on. But they weren't out there going to build the next great thing. Probably partly because those companies didn't want them to, and they weren't kind of raising them to be those kind of leaders that we might need in the community. And in, I think, 2008, 2009, somewhere around there, Tampa Bay Wave formed. It was just a startup meetup group,
Right.
basically, for technology companies. And they uh, formed into eventually, and like I went to them as a meetup group
Hmm.
because I was like a weird. I think was I in my 20s? I think I busted in my late 20s. Yeah, and like weird hair and strange clothes, and I would show up and go for co-working space and chatting to people. You know, we'd
Nice.
have coffee and code together,
Nice.
and that organization through a whole number of things, including leadership that was probably shooting too high, but actually hit the target.
Hmm.
Funding opportunities, uh, people offering us space. That became the Tampa Bay Wave, which was our first kind of really successful startup and technology incubator. There were a number of large exits from big semi-unicorn companies, the Red Vectors of the world of Tampa Bay, the ConnectWise was here, and those big exits led to extremely wealthy technology individuals who kind of did the same thing that you see in Silicon Valley, where that money is then reinvested into the community for technology startups. And then there is probably some aspect of the university system kind of waking up and taking notice of this stuff with, technology transfer, IP transfer departments inside the technology. Stanford really pioneered this idea of, trying to incubate ideas here that then are inside of Stanford that are then kind of pushed out into the real world through intellectual property kind of controls, patents, trademarks, those kind of things. And Tampa started kind of following some of that model, and the three or four of these things, kind of led to the next round of startups that eventually grew out of here. We've always been there's always been a very weird combination here of complete and utter bullshit, which is, I think after kind of the .com bubbles burst, there was a bunch of people who got into we're gonna flip real estate, and then like those people became, we're gonna be the first round of like the social media people, or like the SEO probably first, like we're like SEO experts, and then they all transferred themselves into being the social media experts, and then they transferred themselves into being the growth hackers, and then they probably transferred themselves into being crypto bros. Kind of like
Right.
bullshit chained on top of bullshit.
Right.
But around all that bullshit on top of bullshit, there was actual people building real things backed by a growing community of educational systems, of incubators like now Embark Collective as well is up there with Tampa Wave.
Right.
Jeff Finnick coming to Tampa and buying out, the Lightning, but as well as like investing with Bill Gates in huge parts of Channelside and the Riverwalk and all that kind of stuff. Lots of money coming in as technology as itself as rose throughout the country as like a respectable way to earn a living.
Right.
It all kind of like culminated in us becoming a pretty big tech hub, and we have become a surprisingly huge cybersecurity tech hub, as you know. Right?
Yep.
That's your thing, right? I'm not a cyber guy, but we have ReliaQuest and KnowBe4 and like some of these enormous freaking companies here. Like we have some of the largest cybersecurity unicorns on the planet
in Tampa. Yep.
Here in Tampa Bay. I don't know why, but it has become So to get back to like the very last part of your question, that community helped raise me here. I owe a lot to those people who've sat with me and gave me advice, or even just gave me confidence, or said, "Hey, you're on the right track," or once in a while would recommend a client to me, or would buy me a drink, or anything along those lines. And the number one thing that you need on your way to getting to who you're going to be or where you're going is other people.
Right.
Nobody gets wherever they are on their own.
Yep.
That is such a platitude at this point, or such a cliche, but it is 100% true.
Right.
And so, and the other thing is, it's just rewarding. You get enough gray hair in your beard, and you're like, you kind of want to give out some advice and maybe some cash to like clean up the bay or buy new
programs.
chairs for the tech center, or send your lead engineers to talk to the STEM programs. Like those things just make you feel good, as long as you're like not a complete crap person.
Yeah, I agree. And to your point, some of the reasons personally, because I've lived in Tampa for about 12 years now, and I came here for grad school. I got my master's, PhD at USF and all those fun stuff. On and off, I've lived in Tampa consecutively. I've lived in other parts of the country, but I always maintained residency somehow in Tampa. And the pandemic messed things up for everyone. But then shortly after, I want to say during the pandemic, was when Tampa actually started to take on that leadership role, because a lot of people moved to Florida because they just liked all the, not too many restrictions in Florida for whatever reason. That's an entire different podcast on its own. But then during the pandemic
and the cold, people,
Yep.
a lot of people don't like the cold, man.
Yep.
I don't. I like the cold, but like I am grateful for Tampa's weather, because that's why my wife moved here. She was like done with St. Louis. She's like, I'm done with the cold. My CTO and business partner, he picked Tampa because he didn't want to live in the cold of Baltimore anymore.
Nice.
There is something about the weather as well.
Yeah. And again, it's more of just the state allows businesses to thrive, especially during the pandemic. And people just like Tampa because it's not as expensive as Orlando and Miami. It's a good place to actually start a family. If you're thinking of starting a family, it's a good place to live a quiet life. If you want to live a quiet life, it's good for young people because there's just so many things to do. You mentioned Channelside and Water Street. That's just like an entire city on its own.
Our airport alone is a reason to live here. And also, if you want to live in Florida, if you want the weather, if you don't want to live in Mickey Mouseville and like Strip Mallville, like Orlando, no offense to Orlando, love you guys for the convention center is great, or Miami, which I don't know. I work in
Miami is
a lot,
another country. Like, let's just put it that way.
Do not want to live in no. But we live in like the perfect. Like Tampa is as good as it gets for
Everything.
Especially if you bought a house before the pandemic, then it's the
Yep.
best place you can possibly live in the
Yep.
country.
Yeah. So for all these reasons, I think, and again, the Tampa Bay Lightning, they won back-to-back national hockey championships, and then that put us on the map again. And then shortly after that, or shortly before that, the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady. And there's just so many good things happening at the same time that brought a lot of investors in. And then people moving in were like, oh, this just validates my decision to move to Tampa. So all of that, and then we've had good mayors over the years, and on and on and on. The school system is one of the best in the country, at least where we live. So yeah,
Yes, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I can't talk about the sports thing, dude. I like soccer and cricket. So I mean,
Yep. True. So, to kind of wrap up here, I want to be mindful of your time. Can you touch on any upcoming projects, initiatives that Sawstowed is thinking about, is about to start thinking about, as much as you can share?
oof. As a company, there's almost nothing I can share about clients.
Mm,
As a company, we are going to be launching a new AI product in the cruise space,
nice.
which is pretty insane. It's a combination of a large language model. It's one of these angenic kind of things. So it's an agent, right? And what do I mean by an agent? An agent is a piece of AI that can reach outside of its model and do things. In this case, so like imagine if you like ChatGPT. Everyone's like ask ChatGPT a question. But imagine if ChatGPT could like reach out to another system and ask it to do something for you.
Hmm.
Now, we have a version of that for with our system that lives on board of cruise ships that can you can talk to it and you can say, "Hey, what do I have on my schedule today?" And it'll say, "Okay, well, you've got a walking tour of Barcelona in the morning, and then you've scheduled dinner at 7 p.m. in the restaurant." And you say, "Okay, well, what do you recommend that I do when I come back from my walking tour from between like, I don't know, what should I do between noon and 7 p.m.?" And that's an obvious thing. You fill the AI with a bunch of data and you should maybe go get a massage.
Hmm.
Great. And most systems at that point would say, click here and it'll take you to the massage booking thing and then you go and you book it. But our system it has an agent which can reach out via an API and actually make the booking for you. It can retrieve restaurant menus. It can book a shore excursion for you. It can make dining reservations. It's like a full-blown concierge on board of a cruise ship in the middle of nowhere, not connected to the internet. It is bonkers cool, insane.
Nice.
And we're doing something similar in the healthcare space. And we're about to launch something pretty crazy for a client that scrapes hundreds of thousands of companies across the planet in a specific niche. It knows everything about them from, I don't know, 10 or 15 different databases that we merge together, that we use AI to blend, and an understanding based on machine learning of all of the verticals that industry is in and what the multiple of that they trade at when they're sold through M&A practice.
Nice.
We can make pretty good estimations and build pretty interesting reports that would probably take like an investment bank hundreds of hours of work to do. We can do in seconds.
Wow.
And that's about to launch. So
nice.
Yeah, those are the two things that I'm the most excited about.
Nice. So these are definitely interesting things to look forward to. I wouldn't mind having you on sometime in the nearest future after this has launched to basically talk about how it's being received and so on and so on. And then we do another round of, chatting over whiskey and so on and so forth. So yeah.
Yeah, man, we could do this at my dining room table. That's how close we are. So.
Yep.
Our children are asleep. It's now 10:10, right? So.
Exactly. So, any advice to aspiring entrepreneurs based on your unique pathway? I believe you might have some unique advice for anyone trying to make their mark, regardless of where they come from, regardless of what they do, what they want to do, and so on.
If you haven't done some of it yourself, you're going to fail. If you haven't tried to code the thing yourself, if you haven't tried to build some of it yourself, if you have not, and I'm not saying like maybe you don't have to write the code, but if you haven't done like some of the UI design, or if you haven't actually done some of the actual physical work that's required to launch something, you will fail because you do not know how to do that. And as a result, if you don't know how to do that as a startup founder, what you need to be able to do is lead other people to do that and to coach them on how to do it better. And you can only coach through expertise. You can only coach others through expertise, which means you can only scale through expertise. That's it. You cannot just have an idea and pay somebody else to do it. Wow. It does not work.
Wow.
It does not work. So you need to get your hands dirty. You you probably need to get your hands dirty early and fail a lot. And if you're lucky and you're young, you will fail enough to when it becomes important, you will have learned enough about the skills and the market that you're trying to get into, that those skills can be transferred into leadership. And leadership is about coaching people. Leadership is about understanding what the values of the organization are and how those values relate to what the mission is. And that sounds so esoteric. It sounds so esoteric, but the ultimate goal of the thing that makes running any enterprise or any business so easy is if you know exactly what the company is supposed to do and why. And then as a result, what are the values of that organization that allow that mission to be accomplished, right? So like maybe if you're in an investment bank, it needs to be really hard work, right? Like you got to work late hours because that's what they value. Right. Or if you're a marketing tech startup, then we all have to be intelligence or creativity needs to be super important because we need to come up with new ideas all the time, whatever it is. That values are directly related to the competencies and directly related to the mission. And if you don't live and breathe all of those things and you don't have the expertise around them, you're going to fail. And that goes as well for like not talking to your customers. So the sooner you can get an idea out of your head and into the hands of a customer, if you're a startup, if you're going to make the coffee, don't go and buy the coffee shop. The first thing you should do is buy the coffee, roast it, go and try and like sell a couple cups on the street. If you can do that, get a coffee cart. If people like it, get a Facebook page. The thing that I always tell people is, if you want to start something, start a blog about it. This is like, it sounds like so stupid. You want to start a funeral home. I know this sounds crazy, but like I have a friend who wants to start a funeral home. I'm like, okay, go and start a blog about funeral homes and like what makes them good or bad or whatever. And you need to publish 1 post to 2 posts per week. If you can do that for 5 to 6 months and you can build a little bit of an audience, you will A, be an expert in funeral homes. B, you will know that you have the interest and the sticking power to do it. C, you will know you have the work ethic to be able to put the blog post out once or twice a week. And D, you'll be able to have like a rough idea of what it's like to try and build an audience and a customer base just from a blog. You don't need to go to the bank first of all. You don't need a business plan. Start a goddamn blog and just do it. Right. Because otherwise, sitting around and twiddling your thumbs and saying, it's a great idea. I love this idea. That's called brain crack. You just you're smoking crack and enjoying it because your idea is never getting onto the world.
Right.
And that is worthless. Ideas do not have any value until they have been put into reality and are faced with the real world.
Wow.
So have experience, get your hands dirty, start a blog, lead through expertise. There you go.
Wow. You cannot coach without expertise. Wow. That has to be the title of this episode. So, wow. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's interesting how I talk to people all the time on the road. You've probably seen me just talking to random people while walking to school and so on.
Every day, man. Every day.
And it's just that curiosity is always something I approach every conversation saying, everyone I meet knows something I have no idea about. And I'm just trying to learn whatever it is they know more than I do, and vice versa. So you've dropped quite a few nuggets on this conversation, which is over an hour at this point, and it doesn't even feel that way. So thank you for that.
My pleasure, man. It was nice to talk to you. I feel the same way about you.
Thank you.
I love listening to your stories. I feel the same way about curiosity, and I've really enjoyed chatting to you. Thank you.
Thank you. So hopefully very soon we set this up again and just run it back. Thank you so much.
Let's do it again. Put the kids to bed, have a whiskey, talk about tech.
Sounds good. Take care.
Cheers, man.